start and end things on time. Welcome here to Hana at First Unitarian Church of Honolulu. We're glad you're all here. Today, right, wouldn't be anywhere else, right, Wally? I know there's a lot going on right now, and for folks, and Dr. Michele wanted also to check in and talk some about change processes, answer questions, talk about some of the things that are going on for folks as well, and just kind of be here together and hold this space. So Dr. Michele, do you want to say hi? Yeah.
You weren't kidding, Reverend TJ. This is where all the cool people hang out.
Yeah.
I mean, look at them. So thank you all very much. And it's really good to be with you all, this evening. I am envious of your daylight. It's 11 o'clock where I am. So I am drinking black tea and enjoying the company and looking forward just to these conversations, knowing that there's a lot on your hearts and a lot on your mind, and here ready to hold that space with you. So thank you.
Yeah, great. Yeah, one of the things I wanted to kind of chat about is I know we've talked some about my leaving, and I know that is weighing a lot on a lot of people. Are having a feeling of, well, what's going to happen to this, what's going to happen to that, like where are we in the process of things? And one of the things I've been kind of ringing the bell about for a little while is moving along. The reason you're here and the reason we've been doing this work is for having building a community for our young families within a community of communities. And can you just kind of, because I also sort of wrote about it all of us did in the stewardship letter, and also I talked about it a little on Sunday, but can you kind of fill folks in on where we are with the learning, building up a community that wants to do more learning and education, and really across all ages?
It is across all ages.
Yeah. So I think if you could just update folks where we are and what we're looking at in the future.
That would be fun. It would be. And so I don't know if you all have been marking this or not, but did you realize that I came to work with you all on April 22nd of last year? So as of Friday, it will be a year since I have been with you. And so think about that and how much has happened. In that time, I've had the opportunity to work with Eleanor and Callie and this amazing religious education committee and all those families who have held the space for particularly children's religious education and family worship and all of the family kinds of events around that. And for about 3/4 of it, it has been in creative spaces, getting together outdoors, beach days, maybe at a home, so that people could see each other, some creative things online, so really playing with some creative ways of doing learning and being in community as families and as lifespan religious education through a pandemic. And then we went through into the opening where as worship came together, so did religious education. And we're in that process right now. Now, during that whole pandemic, the other really big thing that has been going on is the reestablishment of space so that religious education spaces are accessible to people of all abilities. In other words, they don't have to climb stairs if they are unable to and be able to be a part of RE. And so, you all have kind of watched as we have developed some different spaces, cleaned out an office that will soon become both a shared administrative space and an RE space, and then the development of this outdoor space, which has just been a magical process. So those are some of the things that have been happening. All of this has been looking forward to the idea that at some point, when the right person is present and the religious education committee knows exactly what they need, that there will actually be a hire for a professional religious educator in some form. Now, Eleanor should not be the only one clapping right now. Everybody should be clapping. Yeah, there we go. And so that is still in design, and we're working towards that. In fact, Reverend TJ and I have actually been putting out feelers. Actually, let me say this. Reverend TJ's put out feelers, and I've been riding on Reverend TJ's coattails, because Reverend TJ's had the connections in the Honolulu area. And in those, it's very possible that we will be able to find some professional teachers who can come and be a part. And maybe those relationships will develop into a more professional religious education director position. So it's all in progress. In the meantime, there is really good work around anti-racism and anti-oppression work. We have had really good conversations about how to be an intergenerational community, and we are doing adult religious education as well, which is continuing. My friends, it has been a busy year. It's and the amount of work that you all as a community have done, both emotionally and psychologically, as well as physically. There has been concrete torn up. So it's physical as well as everything else. And now there's a new transition. So let's see how all of these transitions marry together. Reverend TJ, is that what you were looking for?
Yeah, it's good to get an update, kind of see where things are headed and where they're going. And yeah, to just fill in some of the details, one of the processes institutions go through in some areas is what's sort of like a peer institution input and a peer institution sharing. And so the people I've been reaching out to are director level and organizational level people at Faith Action, at Manoa, like at Cameron Miyamoto, the director of the LGBTQIA plus group there, who I think Dr. Michele even had a meeting with to learn more about. We've also gotten input from the Weaving Our Stories founders, who we did a lot of work with, and we've gotten some actually very long kind of informational thoughts about. What I asked them all was, how do you perceive us in the community as a peer institution? Because sometimes that's the kind of feedback you need, because if you're just in your own head and you think you know what you need, you know, that might be true, but sometimes it's good to at least get that confirmed. And so we did get some feedback from folks about what bringing an educator would mean, and some of the attributes they would like to see. Because we've already heard some from, obviously from all members of the church, but it was really good to get that information from folks that we've worked closely with. So that's all sort of gone into the data banks of, and Dr. Michele and I were both in all of those conversations. So yeah, so it's been a really good gathering process where we're going there. So just to kind of fill in where that was. And this is one of those Pauhanas where it's not all presentational. As questions come up, because we might move from subject to subject, it's probably better to just ask questions as they come up. It would be great if you could raise your electronic hand, but if not, there aren't that many of us. You can just unmute and start talking, and that's also fine. You don't feel bad about interrupting us, because we'll just go. I see Eleanor's virtual hand, however. Eleanor, would you like to unmute and join the conversation?
So I wanted to thank you for the background. I'm having reactions about change, which is totally fair and normal. So I please appreciate this sort of like question and desperation. Dr. Michele, assuming we don't get a DRE that lands in our lap, on July 1st, would you be willing to keep working with us?
So I'm going to answer that through the back door. Okay, so just so everybody knows, my letter of agreement with the congregation is to be in relationship with you through June 30th. And a part of that, which I am so excited about, is that I am going to be on site with you. I'm flying in on June 3rd, and we're not flying out again until the 22nd. And
well, our plan is just to not let you fly out again. But please,
well,
I'm curious to hear what else you have to say about your plans. But good.
I love it. I love it. Well, and both my husband Andy and my daughter Helena are coming. And by the way, Andy has asked how he can help on the church grounds, so we can hold him to that. Okay. So we're also bringing you some physical labor along the way. And so I am so excited, first of all, just to be in the physical proximity with you all during that time. There'll be worship, there'll be play, there'll be time to get together, there'll be learning, etc. So now to your question, Eleanor, the thing now for the congregation to do as you look at change, because we have been looking at change within religious education all year. We've been doing interim work. And now you all can use that and broaden that to the full congregation. And in that, if there is a need for me to continue to be in relationship in some form, knowing the full picture, then let's have that conversation, because that's a possibility. But it's not about what's best for me or what is there. What you all need to do is not think about me as the person, but think about what you all as the congregation need. And then let's see if we can find those resources. And if I'm that resource in one way or another, then let's have that conversation. But it might be that you might need something else. So let's keep that open and know that it's more about what your mission and vision is. So it's not personality driven, it's mission driven. Does that make sense?
It does. If it's driven by any personality, it's driven by mine seeking some kind of certainty. But I will release that. I won't, but I will attempt.
And Reverend TJ, can I speak to that real quick, since Eleanor has brought it up so well?
Yeah.
Because I have the feeling that everybody here is feeling the anxiety, the uncertainty, the all kinds of feelings that come with that uncertainty. And just know that one thing is for sure in the midst of it. Well, no, there's two things for sure. One of them is that you do not have to stuff those feelings aside. They are real, they are present, and they should be a part of this process. And secondly, in that I'm willing to be in relationship with you and shift a little bit to broaden from RE to hold the container that holds all that uncertainty, along with the leadership of your congregation. You all are not alone in this. And what you're going through is normal. Change is the event. Reverend TJ made an announcement. Reverend TJ is now leaving, and in that, that's a change. Transition is what you do with that. So now we have the opportunity to say, what kind of transition will you do? And you all have time. Nothing has to be done by next week. You have time to sit with this, to grieve it, and to understand who you are right now as a people, and to start dreaming about your future. Because quick fixes aren't going to help you, but taking advantage of this time so that you can kind of say, hey, we have a chance to mold our leadership into where we're going. Let's play with that. You all are incredibly beautiful people. So honor that, trust that. You're going to do just fine. Does that help?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Help me. I don't know if it worked for anyone else, but thank you, Dr. Michelle. Yeah, I see Richard's electronic hand. It could be Karen's off camera, but
she is off camera, but she's not speaking yet. I have a little story that I hope is relevant. Today we went shopping because we needed matzahs for the Seder and other things, and we discovered that matzahs are currently made out of unobtainium, in this island. Most stores never carry them, and those that do on occasion were all sold out. We were sorely disappointed to have no matzahs for the Seder. And then I thought, these Stone Age people running away from being chased, somehow they managed to come up with matzahs. It's like, well, how did they do it? Let's look up the recipe, and found out that they're quite easy to make, and we're quite excited now. And it's so much, the idea of being able to present the matzahs that we made by hand instead of the lovely square regular store-bought matzahs. So that's kind of an allegory. So what do you do with the disappointments? And I can present our homemade matzahs, and I can be disappointed that I didn't have the others. And both of those can be on the plate together.
Very nice.
Good story.
Does Karen want to say anything, or was?
Not yet. She'll be there when she does.
Okay. All right. She'll be coming around the mountain. All right. Well, thanks
Reverend
for that,
TJ,
Richard.
Sue's got her hand up.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Sue. You start talking and I'll get you in the combo here. There you are. Go ahead.
Okay, well, I'm nuts and bolts, and I received from the RE team a very aspirational budget request, and we are a small church, and I'm thinking, well, how do we mesh this together? Because for us, it's been somewhat of a challenge to have a full-time minister, a half-time office manager, a half-time music director, and probably just in a way, I'm going to say quarter-time RE. And now we're moving into transition, and we can play with the building blocks, the staff building blocks in any way we want, or anyway, yeah, I guess so. And the only thing that looking at the aspirational budget of RE, I'm thinking, well, have you ever seen a church, another UU church, where the ministry is more geared towards religious education versus sort of a Sunday morning experience, that we're sort of accustomed to now, which we love. We love Reverend TJ coming there and preaching to us and just inspiring us. But if we were to do, basically a full-time RE person, being a small church and with the monies that we have, we would have to shift the balance in some respect. Do you understand the question I'm asking? I mean, it's a really delicate question. And I just wondered what other models are there other than what we are accustomed to?
And Sue, you're putting your finger on the conversation that I think is not the most immediate next step, but very close at hand. Because first of all, the very first step is to kind of deal with your own grief and shock and all of those things, and just let that kind of flow through you all as a community, because that's a natural part of change and transition, is that first wave of holy crap, that kind of comes, right? And so after that, then part of it is this whole process of saying, okay, who are we now and who do we want to be? And as you set those goals and take some time to do so, the most immediate question after that is, how do you want to resource it? And minister and staff are part of the resourcing package, right? Your building, your people, your volunteers, and your staff are some of the resources that staff your priorities and your dreams. So as you all do that, there are many models out there. To be fair, the most typical model is that Sunday morning worship is the central component of congregational life. And then RE and some other things kind of happen swirling around that. However, in this world where we are working on anti-racist, anti-oppression work, developing different communities of communities is a great model. And I'll tell you, that is not out of the question. And it's been done in other congregations where either minister religious education are equal colleagues who work in teams, or there are congregations where they have a professional religious educator and not a minister. So that is possible. Maybe they're both this, maybe they're both half time, maybe they're both 3/4 time, maybe you grow it where they're both full time. I don't know, but all of those things are possibilities, just so your goals drive it, if that makes sense, your dreams and your goals.
Thank you.
There were two other hands before yours, Catherine, but since you're in the shot, why don't you go ahead and then we'll go to Richard. Then we'll go to Richard and Ellen. I hope that's okay, Richard and Ellen. Go ahead, Kat.
So Dr. Michele,
Yeah.
I'm wondering if while you're here, you will be willing, and if this is part of the plan, to help us go through some of that. I guess what an interim might do is help us with the grieving process and the planning process.
I think that would be a really good thing to do. Now, we can't do it in just a month.
You cannot?
I would, well,
You're very smart.
and what is that this will be your work. I can definitely be in relationship with you and guide you. And trust me, doing the interim work is the stuff I love. I've been doing it since 2006. It is magical. And yet it also means saying, okay, we're willing to take some time to do this. And that doesn't mean that you can't look at filling in some resources like a contract minister or whatever you might want to look at in the meantime. Engaging in an interim process, you can do whatever you need to do to keep your program and your worship and everything going, but also say, we're going to take some time to grieve, to understand who we are and where we're going. And yeah, let's start that. Let's start it. That would be fun.
Great. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so much, both of you. We'll go back to Shea Velasic and then to Ellen.
Yeah, and don't follow too closely Elizabeth Kubler-Ross.
The stages of grief.
And Richard, on that, I actually follow Alyssa Bishop Becker, who is the late wife of Randy Becker, and Randy Becker is a UU minister, retired out of the Florida Keys. And Alyssa, actually, she does what's called the spiral, the grief spiral, that it's not linear. And I actually think that grief is all over the place. I think it's much more of a web and sometimes just a mess.
Yes.
So how's that?
Yeah, we're immersed in grief right now, however we happen to be expressing that or not, expressing it in the apophatic.
Yeah.
I was thinking about what Sue was saying, and yes, it's early times to be doing some of that work, and my mind started going there immediately. So a lot of us have this going, and so I hope Sue, and I know some other people are talking about getting together so we can have some conversations. And I think of somebody said life is I am me and what happens to me, and and so I'm kind of looking at the church in terms of what happens. We are who we are, and those things that happen to us. We had 2 interims happen to us, and I am very wary about going down that path again, but I would trust you, Dr. Michele, to help us through that process to whatever extent we need it. And I think, Sue, I think there are, we can look at models that are out there, and I think we can also build a model for ourselves that perhaps we can sell, because does it seem to be that we're, what needs in the UU community are we meeting right now? And how can we take advantage of who we are and what we're good at? And one of the things that we could become good at is transitioning through ministers leaving, ministers that we grow to love, being with us a short time, and being good at making those transitions.
Thanks, Richard. Thanks. Ellen, why don't you join us?
Yeah. So I don't have the same like trauma as everyone else because I've never been through this before. And I too am a pragmatist. And so I'm just, I'm happy that we're looking at RE as something for everyone, because my major fear is the major demographic hole we have in our church, and there's nowhere for teenagers. And then, I think we have quite a numbers drop off as, you go down the age spectrum. So I think if we could find a way to make it welcoming to people of all ages, we might be able to fill in those gaps that we have now. And so, the church is as healthy in 15 years as it is now.
Yeah. Thanks, Ellen.
Nice.
Yeah.
I love that.
One of the things I was gonna say, everything else everyone was saying was so much smarter, so I didn't butt in. But if everyone's done saying really smart things, I'm gonna say something a little simpler, which is when I was your half-time minister, and then your 3/4 time minister, and then your full-time minister, everyone heard me say, or at least if you were listening, heard me say, when I'm a 3/4 time minister, imagine there are 10 things a minister does. I'm going to do 7 of them all the way, and 3 of them I'm not going to do. And one of them was that's just it. Otherwise, you're going to get sucked into doing some things halfway. And when you add the disciplines that you're all talking about, say we talk about music and administration and a minister kind of like me or something like me, and then education. Say you have 20 disciplines at that point, or maybe more. It's like a bundle. Church is like a bundle of goods, and how you meet those goods where they are and how you kind of fill in those 20 to 25 disciplines is all up to everyone. There are the most creative kind of ministries are starting to come out now, because for the last 10 years, young people in seminary are being told church is changing, just because it always has for the last 3,000 years. But church is changing. You need to be more entrepreneurial. So you'll see people coming out of seminary now who were credentialed religious educators first, and then they went and got their MDiv, and they actually are like a 5-tool player, to use a baseball analogy. And someone like that might be able to come in a way that they may not need we just don't know what kind of arts and skills people will have. Is this making sense to people, that it really can be a creative time? And it's not just that you're doing it in a way you want to do it, and then there won't be something there to meet your need. People are rethinking ministry in these creative ways. We had 4 different sermons from Greg Boyd, who is a master level credentialed religious educator, but he's finishing up seminary and his doctorate in education. So there are people like that who want to reimagine ministry for all ages in that way. So yeah, that I just wanted to kind of put my little thought in there. But Eleanor, why don't you join us? Oh, you're muted. Yeah, I might have accidentally muted you. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I just wanted to give a slightly different perspective on the interim process, because I wasn't here when Mike he didn't transition. Sorry, it was a transition for the church. Mike did not transition, but I was here when Jennifer left, and so I don't have the same like visceral reaction to interim ministry. All I know is that when Jennifer left, I felt abandoned both by Jennifer and by the church, because I was the co-chair of the worship team. And we talked about this, like we had a lovely meeting with Dr. Michele and TJ about like trauma. And that was like months ago that we did this, but I don't know where that come from, but that is a trauma of mine, that the church was like, yeah, we don't need an interim minister. Y'all can just do it. And I was sitting there going, and I gave my mental health to that. I eventually had to give up the worship team because I just couldn't take it anymore. There was no, like, it's not, and I should be clear, it's not that the worship team wasn't supporting me. I felt supported by the team. It was just like the rest of the church didn't, there wasn't enough. And so I would caution against us being completely reactionary against the idea of an interim minister based on past experience. And this is not me trying to invalidate the negative experiences that we had. Richard and I can do this whole thing together. But I'm just saying, I know that there are amazing interim ministers out there. We have one right here. And we can find one that works for us and do amazing work that doesn't cause like ripples of trauma throughout our membership. So that's just a different perspective.
Thank you, Eleanor. Yeah, wonderful.
And you know, the one thing that I think, because Reverend TJ, what you were just saying, I think that's really important, is understanding how to right size the professional role. You know, so if the minister is half-time, and like you said, there's 10 things, then they can do 5 of those things, and then the minister with the community can say, what are the priorities, right? And that's a healthy process. It's the same with religious education. It's same with all the roles. I would also say that is a good exercise to do with your lay leadership as well. Where is it that you right size the leadership for your committee chairs, for your committee members, for your board, for everyone who has those kinds of important leadership roles? Because the last thing you want to do is also burn out your leaders who are your lay leaders as well. So that's a part of the process that could be really, really healthy. And it's also scary because there's always the fear of what's going to drop. And during the interim, I would say this is a great time to let some things drop. And know this, trust that you all are vital. You all have a deep, solid mission and vision. You have a good, solid foundation under you. If your ministry slows down for a year or 2, depending, you're not going to dissolve anywhere. You're going to be fine, and it's going to raise a healthier congregation, a more vital congregation in the future. So I would encourage you to take the risk and let things slow down enough so that you can do the introspection that's needed and build some of these systems, like right-sizing professional positions, setting goals, right-sizing lay leadership positions, and all of those things. And then you'll find out that as you start to kind of gear things up and get them going faster again, that you're going to feel much stronger and have much more energy.
Yeah, thank you for that, Dr. Michele. And I do see the hand in shave elastic. I just want to add one thought to that. Is that, you know, I'm sort of honor bound not to get into future stuff too much. So I'll only talk about the last few months, say, since we came out of the pandemic, for those of you who get my monthly reports, you'll see that my administrative time has been some months more than 40% of my time is administration, and other months like 30% of my time. I'm a very well-paid administrator, and so I'm just saying that I was already thinking maybe the way is to go back to sort of a pre-pandemic structure where I would go back to 3/4 time and free up those resources for either education or for more administrative help, something like that. So there was, even the space or even the mode we were kind of working in was already starting to shift. I mean, even so underneath the surface, like you see the faces before you and you think of the people and you think of how it's structured, but even underneath that, there was already some thoughts of, is this really the way the balance is supposed to work? So there was, we're just kind of now living that out in a much more realized, sort of freer way, of reimagining. So I'll go back to Sue and Catherine. I like it when there's two people in the frame. You never know who you're going to get. So let's go.
You go first.
So,
Aha.
Dr. Michele, I love what you're saying about all this work that we have to do. And I have to say, I'm still tired from the last time we did this work,
Fair enough.
which was, just 5 years ago. And hopefully we have a lot of new people who are going, oh, great, we get to do this work. This is new to us. That's wonderful. But I know for myself, I'm tired. But that's all I have to say.
And
So,
that's fair. And I think we need to, as a community, own that and hold that and know that we don't have to start from scratch. That work is still vital, so you're not starting, you can use some of the work that you have already done, as building blocks. It's good to reevaluate it to see, is it still useful today? And a lot of it is, and a lot of things do need to tweak. The other thing to own is that we are all exhausted still from the pandemic. And that, and we can't ignore the fact that pandemic exhaustion, fatigue, and all the depression and anxieties from it are still in our systems. And so that's another thing that's a part of this layer. So we can hold that tiredness and find ways to share the load together.
thank you.
Sue, go ahead.
Yeah, so this is somewhat in response to what Eleanor was feeling and also what Catherine's feeling. When we went through this after Jennifer, I don't know if you guys can kind of place yourself back in that time, but we had no way the kind of income that we have now. And we are in such a better place than we were when we went through the interim, or that, when I say the transition period after Jennifer. If you recall, we did not have any of the rentals, the residential rentals at our building, which are now bringing in close to $100,000 annually. And so when Jennifer left, and one of the things that I don't know all the reasons why he left. I mean, he and I've had many conversations about that, but we were in dire straits financially. Well, we're not anymore. And there's much more that we can do that we couldn't do then. So, I mean, I totally understand how the worship team was just put upon back then because we didn't have any money. And it wasn't until really when Reverend TJ was just getting started with us that we finally, as a community, with the help of Junko and Dave Davis, came together and made some major decisions about staying in the building and fixing up are upstairs to create this income flow that help to support our ministry, because without it, right now, we wouldn't exist. So anyway, I just wanted to say that. So it's a much better situation. We've got lots more financial resources to help with this transition. So anyway.
Thank you, Sue. Yeah, one of the things, if people had heard me over the years, that a lot of my goal here was to make my job more attractive, because every ministry ends, and not making me more, I try to run, I try to work out, not making, I'm just kidding. But try to make the role more attractive. And it is. It's a lot more attractive than when I got here, friends. Like, people are like, trust me, that my colleagues are really just like many of you wonder whether my head should be examined, but that's neither here nor there. I think you're going to be able to take advantage of that. And I can't promise anything, but I do think you're in a totally different situation. The caliber of professionals who will be interested is very different than what you were dealing with 5 years ago. So yes. So I'm just owning where you guys got some, like, I wasn't even done with my internship. You had no idea what was going on. Like, now you got people who will have like proven track records who you'll probably be talking with. So if it's all right, we're going to go to Kathy ahead of the Velasics, because you had a few bites at the apple. Go ahead, Kathy.
I'm one of the new kids. And so I'm not aware of, all of what has happened in the past, but I do know that when people undergo change of any kind, they kind of tend to draw in and return to relying on the proven paths and the proven questions as a way to get some certainty and a way to get some confidence in how to choose the next step. And what I'm aware of is that there are a number of new people. There are a number of, it's not just monetary resources that have increased. We also have a great many people that would be honored and willing and ready to help with this process. So it isn't a matter of nobody. I've heard everybody say nobody's alone in this, but that's really true. The people that have worked so hard in past transitions that are tired, maybe we just need to, us new kids just need to step in and say, let us help.
It's exceedingly wise and compassionate, Kathy. Thank you. Yeah. And yeah, very beautiful. We'll go back to the Velasics, who I think were just cheering, but please go ahead.
Cheering for what she said. Yeah, step in. Yeah, 20, I don't know, 20 years on the worship team, five ministers, two of them interim, one with dementia. Who knows how many during that period of no minister? Yeah, it's tiring. But I wanted to resolve this into a question or two for you, Dr. Michele, back to something you said just earlier about letting things go. My position on the worship team, even before any of this, I was thinking perhaps all of us should just quit.
Mm-hmm.
And let the congregation figure out what they need. Way back when I was president, the nominating committee would come to me and say, "Oh, we can't get anybody to fill this job, and we can't get that," and expecting me to get all excited and upset and come up with a solution. My solution was, nobody can do the job. Maybe we don't need the job. that's what I proposed, and nobody would follow me on that. But are those? Do we need to think about things like that? I think is what do you think about just
Yeah, so
let
I come at it at a so the one thing that I do not fully encourage is just for everybody to quit their jobs and go home. And so not yet. What I do encourage is to think of this. And Richard, you're on to something in some of the mentality of this. There's a minister in our denomination, Reverend Nancy McDonald Ladd, who preached a sermon way back early in her career, which basically said, if you don't say no, you're not giving room for anybody else to say yes. And that has stuck with me. So when someone does, so saying no is a gracious act because it does leave room. Okay, so I think that's a very important thing to know. It's also important to know where your own passions are and to be ready and courageous enough to step into leadership and to say, this is what I'm available to do, and not even have to wait to be asked, because our ESP is horrid. We do not read minds well, and so sometimes we do have to say, hey, this is where my passions are. And on the same thing, one of my favorite ways of doing religious education is not to have a small group design the RE program and then try to get all the leaders into it, but to actually get all of those people who say, I am passionate about this, and get them into a room and say, okay, now let's design it because we know who's at the table. What if we designed congregational life by those kinds of groups, where we pulled the people in who said, okay, I've got passion here. Now let's design, instead of let's design who are we going to have fill the roles. Okay. Now there's some roles that they just need someone, Sue, we need money. The whole taking care of money, so there are some things that we don't want to disappear too fast. And I'm not trying to say you can't go anywhere, but what I am trying to say is there are always foundational things that do need attention. And yet at the same time, you all are speaking some wisdom here that I think is going to be really important as you go forward.
Thanks, Richard. Yeah.
Liberation pedagogy.
We are
Yeah.
going to
All right. All right. Any other questions? And we didn't. Yeah, I'm just going through in case. I just want to make sure everyone's got their opportunity, even if they're just waving their hand. So forgive me as I'm scanning through. Oh, I see Carolyn's hand is up. Carolyn, go ahead.
I would like to really understand for sure what you were talking about when you were telling us that the fraction of your weekly time that you spent on administration had grown. I think that's what you were saying.
Mm-hmm.
And were you advising that we'd be better off getting somebody else to do that?
Well, no, I wasn't specifically saying that, that there were things that needed to get done that someone should hire me, hire someone else to go and do instead of that. But what I do feel like part of me was filling a gap, filling a need with the extra time I had. Well, I don't really have that much extra time, but like the way I was doing that, I wasn't really able to say no, because as the full-time minister, the way things tend to go in any business, it doesn't even me, in any community, there's always someone who, if someone says, I'm not doing this, there's always someone who's going to do it. There was just a bit of Reverend TJ doing some things that were in the more administrative capacity for the last 2 months. And I did predict it was going to go down. And obviously it's going to go down now because there really isn't that much I can be doing in the transition phase. But I more mentioned it just, that was what was leading me to feel that maybe going back to 3/4 time and then just saying, I absolutely won't be doing these kinds of things anymore. Please figure out how to do them gently, just like Dr. Michele. I wasn't gonna, just be like, oh, FYI, never doing this again. But it was starting to help me frame and follow my sort of instinct to maybe go back to 3/4 time ministry because of the way my time was getting used. So, and it wasn't a final thing. It was just something starting to percolate. So, yeah. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you very much.
Sure. Lee, why don't you join the conversation?
Thank
Go
you. I just wanted to kind of tag on to Carolyn's question. How do you define administrative duties? I'm just wondering, like, if I write you an email and ask you some questions, is that administrative?
No. Anything that's one-on-one communication with congregants of a pastoral matter or things like that, I look at as pastoral care or something else. I'm like, we were getting into a lot of Google Docs and a lot of reopening stuff and things like that for the last few months. That's why I was seeing it already start to go down. But yeah, just so you know, yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah, thanks. All right, we'll go to Jill and Mike.
I did.
Yeah, I think you probably just answered my question. I was going to ask for some specific examples of how those administrative tasks had grown. And what I'm hearing is you're saying a lot of it had to do with the transition of going back into the building.
Yeah.
But any other examples that are important would be useful.
Yeah, I mean, I have 5 years of every single hour I've ever worked. So if you're curious to see exactly what I've done, I'm happy to turn it over. But maybe in this month's report to the board, I could do a section that maybe has a little more specificity about that area and give you some clarity. Would that help? Yeah, okay, sure, no problem. Yeah, but that was the other thing, is like, when we're getting to reopen, it went up to about 43% is what I would term sort of administrative work. Then it went down to about like 35. And my prediction was it was going to get back into the high 20s is about where it kind of sits. And which, by the way, is pretty normal. I don't want people that, right? I mean, Dr. Michele, wouldn't you say that, like, for a minister congregational setting, about a quarter of their time doing administrative, 20 to 25% is not unheard of by any means. But no, 43 to pushing into the 50% range is a little high. So yeah, great. All right. Any other thoughts or questions? Is there anyone in the conversation who we've been talking about everything else and not talking about what they want to talk about and would really like to talk about, some other topic or having some other feeling? You can always private message me so that, oh, I see. Oh, okay. It's just Matt weighing in. Thank you, Matt.
Hey,
oh, yeah.
in an unrelated note.
Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
Go ahead. No,
I have an
go for
announcement. We're going to do sign waving on this Sunday at the church on the Poly. If you're down, and there's information that Matt's putting in about closing down Red Hill. So if you want to wave signs on the Poly, there's a flyer to share. It's just for a few minutes. We know a door. There's someone with a serpentine belt problem. I just know that's the problem. I don't know how to fix it on my block. But there's a special door at 12:30 for families. A very well-known author is going to be doing a wonderful presentation. Maybe Dr. Michele can say a word about that before we go. So you have plenty of time after the Seder, if you're on site, to grab some signs and wave them and get this travesty of environmental problems maybe addressed even better. Yeah. Anything more you want to say, Matt?
I think you did pretty good. Just to let people know, although the military did agree The Pentagon did agree to shut down the tanks. The Navy had actually promised us that before, and then they went back on it, and there's still open litigation there. So at any time they could change their mind. We got to continue to hold their feet to the fire, because there's still all that fuel is in danger of impacting our water, and it already is impacting our waters.
Yeah. Thank you, Matt.
And I would encourage Allison to talk about the Adore program with the author, because I think that's been, Allison, you've done a lot of work on putting that one together.
Thank you. Yes, she's going to be talking. She's the woman who wrote the children's version of Stamped. It was a best-selling book, and she's written the children's version of it. And she has a special presentation for children that she does. And her presentation is a bit shorter than usual. I think it's geared towards children. And so it'll be like 45 minutes of her presentation, and then 15 minutes for questions. And then I'm in contact with her to see if she'll also be open to having conversation with adults afterwards, so that they don't take up the kids' time for questions. And I'm also working to see if it's possible that we can have a screen set up somewhere in the church after church, so that if the parents are taking part in the sign waving, that their kids would still be able to come to the presentation. So that's what those emails have been about. So I hope that kind of clarifies things.
That's helpful. Thanks. That's cool.
So even though it's going to be a shorter Adore in terms of the presentation part for the children, I'm looking to see if she's going to continue to speak with the adults afterwards. So it'll be a full 2-hour program.
Great. Thank you so much, Allison. It's going to be wonderful.
You're welcome.
All right. I see Carolyn has her hand up. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask Allison if the range of ages would include the 4-year-olds or not. That's kind of young, I think.
That's kind of young. Dr. Michelle, what do you think?
That is more for I think your speaker to set, because it's not as much about the book as it is the presentation and how the presentation is geared. I think that's why I'm a little more hesitant to do it, to give a definitive answer. Yeah.
Thank you.
And our speaker's name is Dr. Sonia Cherry Paul, and her book is Stamped for Kids: Racism, Anti-Racism, and You. So
Thank you.
Stamp stand for?
Stamped for Kids.
I don't know what stamp means. Is that an acronym?
No, I believe it's saying kind of like things are stamped. There's, I think, stamped from the beginning, like it's kind of like ingrained.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Like that.
But a very well-known Ibram X. Kendi history book called Stamped from the Beginning, which is about the history of racism. That's what this children's book is referencing.
Okay.
Great. Well, we're going to add Eleanor to the conversation. Thank you so much, Allison. It's going to be awesome. Go ahead,
I don't
Eleanor.
know anything about the particular age range of this book, but I would highly recommend all ages be included, because even if a kid is not necessarily old enough to get the subtleties of the book, they are old enough to understand that we're talking about important things and to sort of like model that to them. So yeah, I'm bringing my 4-year-old.
That's an excellent point. And I think one that we miss in community is that not everyone has to fully understand or be like engaged to get something out of it. Sometimes when we're just present in the community and feel the energy and see who's in the room, that is learning and that is absorption. So thank you for that. That's really helpful.
I heard someone say in church once, one of the most important things you can do if you don't know what to do is just sit in the same seat every week, because people who are unsure and new will actually feel kind of calm. It will help them feel more at peace knowing the same thing is happening every week and that maybe they might sit next to you. So you never know. The power in the ministry of presence is very real.
Nice.
So, and with that, we're at time, friends. We're at TJ taco night time. I don't know why I've gotten in this habit of telling you what I'm eating for dinner, but I made refried beans today. So I'm really excited to have taco night at TJ's house. So yes, Ibram Kendi is the Ware lecturer at General Assembly this year, FYI, in Portland. So
it's Taco Tuesday.
it is. It's Taco Tuesday at TJ's house. So well, thanks everyone. Dr. Michele, thank you. It is midnight where you are.
I know. The bells are ringing.
It's going to be so weird to be with us when you're like, conscious and, so everyone's looking forward to seeing you in June. Everyone.
I'm looking forward to it too. Yeah.
Have a wonderful evening, everyone. Get some food, get some good time with your family and friends, and we'll see everyone real soon. All right.
Good to see you all. Thanks so much.
All right.
Aloha.
Thank you.
you.